Shila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shila Gurudev Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmad Shila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmad Shila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmad Shila Bhakti Vigyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Maha-Bhagavat Shila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannathas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Navgoriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhattadash Raghunath Shara Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Chai Shlai Ras Thakur Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भवृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट विराट गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मुनि देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। 1 second, just sharing my screen. Dandavat pranam Manjari Didi, Madhavi Didi, Indira Mataji, Raseshwari Mataji. Dandavat pranams to everybody. Hari Bol. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Śrīmad-Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Namane. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namah. Sorry guys. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tar Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravrjantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Binedustam Sarvabhuta Hridaya Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Ridantasto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Suritsatam Nashta Prayeshvavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavaivasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Kshiptashtakama Ditarangamathe Kripa Maitam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Let me mute my mic and clear my throat. Okay. Dandavata Pranam Gargaraj ji. Oh, what did I do to the sound was this little lapel mic. It's pretty good, huh? Okay, so, oops. Hey, what the heck? It's supposed to be going into full screen mode. What the heck? Continuous scroll. Okay. So Parikshit asks Shukadeva Goswami about Priyavrata. He says, how could Priyavrata enjoy household life and still perfect his Krishna consciousness? Those who are liberated don't absorb themselves in family affairs. Then Shukadeva Goswami replies to Parikshit Maharaj, telling the glories of devotional service. He says, obstacles cannot obstruct one's absorption in bhakti. Priyavrata could neither welcome Manu's request to rule, nor reject it. So then Brahma descends. And being praised by the demigods, and Brahma meets with Priyavrata, looking at him with compassion and smiling. Then Brahma gives reasons to convince Priyavrata to rule the world. So that's where we got up to day before. So we're going to read the recap of that. Okay. Brahma's reasons for convincing Priyavrata. Nobody can defy the Lord's order. Kindly hear, so this is Brahma speaking now. Kindly hear attentively the truth I am speaking. Do not be jealous of the Supreme Lord, who is beyond our experimental measurements. All of us, including Shiva, Manu, and Narad, must carry out his order. The Lord's order is unavoidable by all means. Not by the power of austerities, education, mystic yoga, physical prowess, intelligence, wealth, religion, by himself or with the help of us, can one avoid the order of the Supreme Lord. The jiva's dependence on the Lord's order. Under the Lord's order, the jiva accepts bodies to perform actions for birth and death, and for lamentation, illusion, fear, happiness, and distress. All of us must obey his orders in the form of varnashram, according to our qualities and work, just as a bull is obliged to move according to the direction of the driver pulling on the ropes knotted to its nose. Accept with faith whatever the Lord gives us, happiness or distress in accordance to our actions in different modes, like a blind man led by a man with sight. Even a liberated person accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. However, he considers its resultant enjoyment and suffering the way an awakened person regards a dream, and thus never works to achieve another material body. Priyavrata may say, but household life is harmful. And then, Brahma continues. One not self-controlled must always fear material bondage, even in the forests, because he is living with the 6 senses, the mind and the 5 gyanendriyas. But a self-satisfied, learned man who has controlled his senses remains unharmed, even in household life. One who is situated in household life
and who conquers his six senses is like a king in his fortress, who conquers his powerful enemies. After his lusty desires have decreased, he can move anywhere without danger. Seek shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, and thus conquer the six senses. Accept material enjoyment following his order. Later, giving up household life, worship the Lord in your constitutional position. So now we're reading Priyavrata accepts Brahma's requests, thinking up to verse 34. So we're reading up to verse 44. So what are we going to cover today? Priyavrata accepts Lord Brahma's requests, and then Priyavrata's rule, his marriages, descendants, and wonderful activities. That's what we're reading today. He divides Bhumandal into 7 oceans and 7 islands and made his sons their rulers. Okay. Shri Shuka Uvacha Iti samabhihito mahabhagavato bhagavatas tribhuvana gurur anushashanamatmano lagutaya vanata shirodharo bhadam iti sabahu manam uvaha. I'm just wondering, when it has these in the daily ISKCON Bhagavatam classes, like the tradition is to have everybody repeat the verse. The speaker will say the verse, and then everybody. Does everybody have to repeat these long like prose of Shukadeva Goswami? Remember, there's one that was very long. Would this be a really long? Yeah. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued. After thus being fully instructed by Lord Brahma, who is the spiritual master of the 3 worlds, Priyavrata, his own position being inferior, offered obeisances, accepted the order, and carried it out with great respect. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sri Priyavrata was the grandson of Lord Brahma. Therefore, according to social etiquette, his position was inferior. It is the duty of the inferior to carry out the order of the superior with great respect. Priyavrata therefore immediately said, "Yes, sir, I shall carry out your order." Priyavrata is described as a Mahabhagavat, a great devotee. The duty of a great devotee is to carry out the order of the spiritual master, or the spiritual master of the spiritual master in the Parampara system. As described in Bhagavad Gita 4.2, Evam para para praptam. One has to receive the instructions of the Supreme Lord through the disciplic chain of spiritual masters. A devotee of the Lord always considers himself a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Sorry, one second, let me clear my throat again. Just checking also everything's okay? Yes, it is. Probably. Yeah, okay, look at this one. Imagine the whole audience, a few people in the audience saying this whole string. Bhagavan api manuna yatavad upakalpita pachiti priyavrata naradayor avishamam abhisamikshamayor atmasam avastanam avangmanasam kshayam avyavaharitam pravartayan agamat. Lord Brahma was then worshipped by Manu, who respectfully satisfied him as well as he could. Priyavrata and Narad also looked upon Brahma with no tinges of resentment. Having engaged Priyavrata in accepting his father's request, Lord Brahma returned to his abode, Satyaloka, which is indescribable by the endeavor of mundane mind or words. Purport. Manu was certainly very satisfied that Lord Brahma had persuaded his son Priyavrata to take the responsibility for ruling the world. Priyavrata and Narad were also very satisfied. Although Brahma had forced Priyavrata to accept the management of worldly affairs, thus breaking his vow to remain brahmachari and completely engage in devotional service, Narad and Priyavrata did not look upon Brahma with resentment. Narad was not at all sorry that he had been frustrated in making Priyavrata a disciple. Both Priyavrata and Narad were exalted personalities who knew how to respect Lord Brahma. Therefore, instead of looking upon Brahma with resentment, they very feelingly offered him their respect. Lord Brahma then returned to his celestial abode known as Satyaloka, which is described here as being impeccable and being unapproachable by words. It is stated in this verse that Lord Brahma returned to his residence, which is as important as his own personality. Lord Brahma is the creator of this universe and the most exalted personality within it. His lifetime is described in Bhagavad Gita 8:17. Sahasrayuga paryatam aharyad brahmano vidu. The total duration of the 4 yugas is 4,300,000 years, and when that is multiplied 1,000 times, it equals 12 hours in the life of Brahma. Therefore, we cannot factually comprehend even 12 hours of Brahma's life, to say nothing of the 100 years that constitute his entire lifetime. How then can we understand his abode? The Vedic literatures describe that in Satyaloka there is no birth, death, old age, or disease. In other words, since Satyaloka is situated next to Brahmaloka, or the Brahman effulgence, it is almost as good as Vaikuntha Loka. Lord Brahma's abode is practically indescribable from our present status. Therefore, it has been described as avan manasa gochara, or beyond the description of our words and the imagination of our minds. The Vedic literatures thus describe the abode of Lord Brahma, yadvai pararadham tar uparameshtyam na yatra shoko najara namritur naratir nachodviga. In Satyaloka, which is situated many millions and billions of years away, there is no lamentation, nor is there old age, death, anxiety, or the influence of enemies. Manurapi parenaivam pratisandita manorata surarshi varanumatenat majam akila dhara mandala stiti guptaya astapya swayam ati vishama vishaya visha jalashaya upararama. Swayambhuva Manu, with the assistance of Lord Brahma, thus fulfilled his desires. With the permission of the great sage Narad, he delivered to his son the governmental responsibility for maintaining and protecting all the planets of the universe. He thus achieved relief from the most dangerous, poisonous ocean of material desires. Swayambhuva Manu was practically hopeless because such a great personality of Narad, as Narad, was instructing his son Priyavrata not to accept household life. Now he was very pleased that Lord Brahma had interfered by inducing his son to accept the responsibility for ruling the government of the universe. From Bhagavad Gita, we get information that Vaivasvata Manu was the son of the sun god, and that his son, Maharaj Ikshvaku, ruled this planet Earth. Swayambhuva Manu, however, appears to have been in charge of the entire universe, and he entrusted this to his son Priyavrata. And he entrusted to his son Maharaj Priyavrata the responsibility for maintaining and protecting all the planetary systems. Dang, that's a pretty high responsibility, not just this whole Earth, but all the planets. Dhara Mandala means planet. This Earth, for instance, is called Dhara Mandala. Akila, however, means all, or universal. It is therefore difficult to understand where Maharaj Priyavrata was situated, but from this literature, his position certainly appears greater than that of Vaivasvata Manu, for he was entrusted with all the planetary systems of the entire universe. Another significant statement is that Swayambhuva Manu took great satisfaction from abnegating the responsibility for ruling all the planetary systems of the universe. At present, politicians are very eager to take charge of the government, and they engage their men in canvassing from door to door to get votes to win the post of president or a similar exalted office. On the contrary, however, herein we find that King Priyavrata had to be persuaded by Lord Brahmā to accept the post of emperor of the entire universe. Similarly, his father, Swayambhuva Manu, felt relieved to entrust the universal government to Priyavrata. Thus it is evident that kings and executive heads of government in the Vedic age never accepted their positions for sense enjoyment. Such exalted kings, who are known as Rashis, ruled only to maintain and protect the kingdom for the welfare of the citizens. The history of Priyavrata and Swayambhuva Manu describes how exemplary, responsible monarchs perform the duties of government with disinterest, keeping themselves always aloof from the contamination of material attachment. Material affairs have herein been compared to an ocean of poison. They have been described in a similar way by Srila Narottam Das Thakur in one of his songs. Sangsara vishanale divanishiya jwale judaite na koi no upay. My heart is always burning in the fire of material existence, and I have made no provisions for getting out of it. Golokera premadan harinam sankirtan ratina janmilo kenetai. The only remedy is Harinam Sankirtan, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is imported from the spiritual world Goloka Vrindavan. How unfortunate I am that I have no attraction for this. Manu wanted to seek shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore when his son Priyavrata took charge of his worldly affairs, Manu was very relieved. It is the system of Vedic that is the Vedic system of Vedic civilization. At the end of life, one must free himself from worldly affairs and completely engage in the service of the Lord. The word Surarshi Vara Anumatena is also significant. Manu entrusted the government to his son with the permission of the great sage Narad. This is particularly mentioned because although Narad wanted Priyavrata to become free from all material affairs, when Priyavrata took charge of the universe by the request of Lord Brahmā and Manu, Narad was also very pleased. Oh, this is a long one. Iti ha vava sa jagati patir ishvare chaya dhiniveshita karmadikaro kila jagar bandha dhangsana paranubhavasya bhagavata adi purushasya sangri yugala navarata dhyana nubhavena parirandita kashayashayo vadato pi mana vardano mahatam mahitalam anushashasa. Sorry. Okay. Following the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maharaj Priyavrata fully engaged in worldly affairs, yet he always thought of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are the cause of liberation from all material attachment. Although Priyavrata Maharaj was completely freed from all material contamination, he ruled the material world just to honor the orders of his superiors. Purport. The words Manavardhano Mahatam, just to show honor to superiors, are very significant. Although Maharaj Priyavrata was already a liberated person and had no attraction for material things, he engaged himself fully in governmental affairs, just to show respect to Lord Brahmā. Arjuna had also acted in the same way. Arjuna had no desire to participate in political affairs or the fighting at Kurukshetra. but when ordered to do so by the Supreme Lord Krishna, he executed those duties very nicely. One who always thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord is certainly above all the contamination of the material world, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Yoginam apisarvesham margatenantaratmana shadavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mata. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. Maharaj Priyavrata, therefore, was a liberated person and among the highest of yogis. Yet superficially, he became the emperor of the universe in accordance with the order of Lord Brahmā. Showing respect to his superior in this way was another of his extraordinary qualifications, as stated in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 6:17-28. Narayana para sarve na kutaschana bivyati swargapavarga narake shvapitulyartadarshinaha. A devotee who is actually advanced is not afraid of anything, provided he has the opportunity to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the proper explanation of why Priyavrata engaged in worldly affairs, although he was a liberated person. Also, only because of this principle does a Mahabhagavat, who has nothing to do with the material world, come down to the second platform of devotional service to preach the glories of the Lord all over the universe. Oh, wow. That's cool. I've heard my Gurudev say this many times, but I never heard Srila Prabhupada say it. But what Srila Prabhupada is saying here is he comes down to the second platform. The second platform refers to Madhyam Adhikar. So although somebody may be an Uttam Mahabhagavat, pure devotee, like an associate of Krishna in the spiritual world, he comes down to the Uttam Bhagavat comes down to the Madhyam platform, the second platform of devotional service, because the Uttam Bhagavat sees everyone as being perfect and having the same feelings for Bhagavan that he has, as explained in the 11th canto. But the Madhyam Bhagavat, he can see the difference between, he sees, he can see which level every person is on. He's able to discriminate. And so, the Uttam comes to the Madhyam platform to be able to discriminate. And because if he wasn't able to discriminate, then how could he give mercy? How could he know what we needed and what our suffering is? And so that's to give mercy. That's why. Okay. Ata cha duhitaram prajapater vishvakarmana upayeme barhishmatim nama tasyam uha bhava atmajam atmasamana shila guna karma rupa virodharan dasha bhavayam pabhuva kanyam cha yavi yasim urjasvatim nama. I'm actually going to just save this sentence because it's good. What is this? 5:1:24, right? Or 23? Yeah. Okay. Okay, here's another one. Atacha duhitaram prajapater vishvakarmana upayame barhishmatim nama tasyam ha vava atmajan atmasamana shila guna karma rupa virodharan dasha bhavayam babhuva kanyam. Oh, whoops, I just read this. Babhuva kanyam cha. Sorry guys, I'm so spaced out. Right? Did I read this? Maybe I didn't. Babhuva kanyam cha yavi yasim urjasvatim nama. No, I did read it. Thereafter, Maharaj Priyavrata married Barhishmati, the daughter of the Prajapati named Vishvakarma. In her, he begot 10 sons equal to him in beauty, character, magnanimity, and other qualities. He also begot a daughter, the youngest of all, named Urjasvati. Purport. Maharaj Priyavrata not only carried out the order of Lord Brahma by accepting the duties of government, but also married Brahishmati, the daughter of Vishvakarma, one of the Prajapatis. Oh, I didn't know Vishvakarma was a Prajapati. Since Maharaj Priyavrata was fully trained in transcendental knowledge, he could have returned home and conducted the business of government as a brahmachari. Instead, however, when he returned to household life, he accepted a wife also. The principle is that when one becomes a grahastha, he must live perfectly in that order, which means he must live peacefully with a wife and children. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's first wife died, his mother requested him to marry for a second time. He was 20 years old and was going to take sannyas at the age of 24. Yet, by the request of his mother, he married. As long as I am in household life, he told his mother, I must have a wife, for household life does not mean staying in a house. Real household life means living in a house with a wife. 3 words in this verse are very significant. Uha-vava. These words are used to express wonder. Uha-vava. Sorry. Ooh la la, right? That's it. Celebrated, wonderful. Okay. These words are used to express wonder. Priyavrata Maharaj had taken a vow of renunciation, but accepting a wife and begetting children have nothing to do with the path of renunciation. These are activities on the path of enjoyment. It was a source of great wonder, therefore, that Priyavrata Maharaj, who had followed the path of renunciation, had now accepted the path of enjoyment. Sometimes we are criticized because although I am a sannyasi, I have taken part in the marriage ceremonies of my disciples. Oh my God, this is such a controversial thing in the Gaudiya Math, because sannyasis were not meant to be doing, according to Gaudiya Math standards, sannyasis were not meant to be carrying out marriage ceremonies. And actually my Gurudev, initially he had to do it in secret. I think Kishore Mohan and Sudevi got married in secret. It wasn't to be known that my Gurudev was the one who married them. Really. It must be explained, however, that since we have started a Krishna-conscious society, and since a human society must also have ideal marriages, to correctly establish an ideal society, we must take part in marrying some of its members, although we have taken to the path of renunciation. This may be astonishing to persons who are not very interested in establishing Daivi Varnashram Dharma, the transcendental system of 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders. Social orders and spiritual orders. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, however, wanted to re-establish Daiva Varnashram. In Daiva Varnashram, there cannot be acknowledgement of social status according to birthright, because in Bhagavad Gita it is said that the determining considerations are guna, one's qualities, and karmas, one's activities. One's qualities and work. And this Daiva Varnashram, that should be established all over the world to continue a perfect society for Krishna consciousness. This may be astonishing to foolish critics, but it is one of the functions of a Krishna-conscious society. Srila Prabhupada is very progressive. Agni Tredma Jiva Yagyabahu Mahavira Hiranya Reto Grito Prishta Savana Medhatiti Viti Hotra Kavaya Iti Sarva Evagni Namana. The 10 sons of Maharaj Priyavrata were named Agnitra, Idmajiva, Yagyabahu Mahavira, Hiranyareta, Grita Prishta, Savana, Medhatiti, Viti Hotra, and Kavi. These are also the names of Agni, the fire god. Etesham Kavir Mahavira Savana Iti Traya Asan Urdhva Retasas Ta Atma Vidyayam Arba Bhavad Arabhya Krita Parichaya Paramahansyam Evashramam Abhajan. 3 among these 10, namely Kavi, Mahavira, and Savana, lived in complete celibacy. Thus trained in brahmachari life from the beginning of childhood, they were very conversant with the highest perfection, known as the Paramahansa Ashram. Purport. The word Urdhva Retasa in this verse is very significant. So I'm just finding my place in the book. Okay. Urdhva Reta refers to one who can control sex life and who, instead of wasting semen by discharging it, can use this most important substance accumulated in the body to enrich the brain. One who can completely control sex life is able to work wonderfully with his brain, especially in remembering. Thus, students who simply hear Vedic instructions once from their teacher could remember them verbatim without needing to read books, which therefore did not exist in former times. Another significant word is Arba Bhavat, which means from very childhood. Another meaning is from being very affectionate to children. In other words, Paramahansa life is dedicated for the benefits of others. Just as a father sacrifices many things out of affection for his son, great saintly persons sacrifice all kinds of bodily comforts for the benefit of human society. In this connection, there is a verse concerning the 6 Goswamis. Takta turnamashesha mandalapati shenim sadatu chabat putva dina ganesha ko karunaya gopena kanta shito gopi. Because of their compassion for the poor fallen souls, the 6 Goswamis gave up their exalted positions as ministers and took vows as mendicants. Thus minimizing their bodily wants as far as possible, they each accepted only a loincloth and a begging bowl. Thus they remained in Vrindavan to execute the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by compiling and publishing various Vaishnava literatures. Oh my God, imagine being in the temple when everybody has to say this. Tasmin uhava. There's uhava again. Tasmin uhava upashama shila paramarshaya sakala jiva nikaya vasasya bhagavato vasudevasya bhutanam sharanya bhutasya Śrīmad-Charana Virata Smarana Vigalita Parama Bhakti Yoganu Bhavina Paribhavitantar Hridaya Digate Bhagavati Sarvesham Bhutanam Atma Bhute Pratyag Atmanevatmanas Tadatmyam Avisheshena Samiyu. Thus situated, do they do the whole word for word? Tasmin, in that. That must take so long. Okay. Thus situated in the renounced order from the very beginning of their lives. So I added the word very. All 3 of them completely controlled the activities of their senses, and thus became great saints. They concentrated their minds always upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the resting place of the totality of living entities, and who is therefore celebrated as Vasudeva. Lord Vasudeva is the only shelter of those who are actually afraid of material existence. By constantly thinking of his lotus feet, these 3 sons of Maharaj Priyavrata became advanced in pure devotional service. By the prowess of their devotional service, they could directly perceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart as the Supersoul, and realized that there was qualitatively no difference between themselves and him. Purport. The Paramahansa stage is the topmost position in renounced life. In sannyas, the renounced order, there are 4 stages: Kutichak, Bahudak, Parivrajacharya, and Paramahansa. According to the Vedic system, when one accepts the renounced order, he stays outside his village in a cottage, and his necessities, especially his food, are supplied from home. This is called the Kuti Chaka stage. When a sannyasi advances further, he no longer accepts anything from home. Instead, he collects his necessities, especially his food, from many places. This system is called madhukari, which literally means the profession of bumblebees. That's where my name comes from. Madhukar does madhukari, the profession of the bumblebees. As bumblebees collect honey from many flowers, a little from each, so sannyasi should beg from door to door, but not accept very much food from any particular house. He should collect a little bit from every house. This is called the bahudaka stage. When a sannyasi is still more experienced, he travels all over the world to preach the glories of Lord Vasudeva. He is then known as Parivrajacacharya. The sannyasi reaches the Paramahansa stage when he finishes his preaching work and sits down in one place, strictly for the sake of advancing in spiritual life. An actual Paramahansa is one who completely controls his senses and engages in the unalloyed service of the Lord. Therefore, all three of these sons of Priyavrata, namely Kavi, Mahavira, and Savana, were situated in the Paramahansa stage from the very beginning. Their senses could not disturb them, for their senses were completely engaged in serving the Lord. Therefore, the three brothers are described in this verse as Upashama Shila. Upashama means completely subdued. Upashamasha, remember in that verse we learned? It means completely subdued. Because they completely subdued their senses, they are understood to have been great sages and saints. After subduing their senses, the three brothers concentrated their minds upon the lotus feet of Vasudeva, Lord Krishna. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Vasudeva sarvam iti. The lotus feet of Vasudeva are everything. Lord Vasudeva is the reservoir of all living entities. When this cosmic manifestation is dissolved, all living entities enter the supreme body of the Lord, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, who merges within the body of Mahavishnu. Both of these Vishnu tattvas are Vasudeva tattvas, and therefore the great sages Kavi, Mahavira, and Savana concentrated always upon the lotus feet of Lord Vasudeva Krishna. In this way they could understand that the Supersoul within the heart is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they could recognize their identity with Him. The complete description of this realization is that simply by discharging unalloyed devotional service, simply by discharging the unalloyed form of devotional service, one can realize his self completely. The Parama Bhakti Yoga mentioned in this verse means that a living entity, by dint of unalloyed devotional service, has no other interest than the service of the Lord, as described in Bhagavad Gita, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. By Parama Bhakti Yoga, by elevating oneself to the highest platform of loving service, one can automatically be relieved from the bodily concept of life and see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achintya guna sarupam govindamati purusham tamaham bhajami. An advanced devotee who is known as a sat, or a saint, can always see within his heart the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Krishna, Shamasundar, expands himself by his plenary portion, and thus a devotee can always see him within his heart. You'll notice in Sanskrit there's very often, the words are very similar, like sat, saint. You can see there's just these two letters in between, otherwise it's the same word in English. Anyasyam api jayayam traya putra asan uttamas tamaso raivata iti manvantaradipataya. When Srivas translates, he very often tries to find the English word that the Sanskrit word came from. Yeah, and he does that all the time, actually. So for Raman, he wrote romance. Like, anyways, never mind. I need to continue. And his other wife, Maharaj Priyavrata, begot 3 sons, named Uttama, Tamasa, and Raivata. All of them later took charge of Manvantar millenniums. Purport. In every day of Brahma, there are 14 Manvantars. The duration of one Manvantar, the lifespan of one Manu, is 71 yugas, and each yuga is 4,320,000 years. Almost all the Manus selected to rule the Manvantars came from the family of Maharaj Priyavrata. 3 of them are particularly mentioned herein, namely Uttama, Tamasa, and Raivata. Oh my god, that's it. I think this is the longest one. Okay. Evam upashamash. God, let me just. Okay, I think I could do better if I just relax. Evam upashamayaneshu swatanayeshvata jagati patir jagatim arbudhanyekadasha parivatsaranam avyahatakila purusha karasara sambrita dor danda yugala pidita morvi gunastanita viramita dharma pratipaksho barhishmatyash chanudinam edamana pramoda prasarana yoshinya vrida promushita hasa valoka ruchira Kshveladivi parabhuyamana viveka iva nava budhyamana iva mahamana bubhuje. After Kavi, Mahavira, and Savana were completely trained in the Paramahansa stage of life, Maharaj Priyavrata ruled the universe for 11 arbudas of years. What's an arbuda? Is that a million? Arbuda is... Oh, arbuda is 100 million. Okay. Oh my god. So wait, 11... What's 11 times 100 million? Oh god, I'm terrible at math. I don't even want to think. I'm just going to embarrass myself. So, okay. Anyways, for forever, pretty much. Whenever he was determined to fix his arrow upon his bowstring with his 2 powerful arms, all opponents of the regulated principles of religious life would flee from his presence in fear of the unparalleled prowess he displayed in ruling the universe. He greatly loved his wife, Barhishmati, and with the increase of days, their exchange of nuptial love also increased. Wait, we're reading about Priyavrata. Yes, okay. Sorry. By her feminine behavior as she dressed herself, walked, got up, smiled, laughed, and glanced about, Queen Barhishmati increased his energy. Thus, although he was a great soul, he appeared lost in the feminine conduct of his wife. He behaved with her just like an ordinary man, but actually he was a great soul. Purport. In this verse, the word dharma pratikpaksha, opponents of religious principles, refers not to a particular faith, but to varnashram dharma, the division of society, socially and spiritually, into the 4 varnas, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and the 4 ashrams, Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. To maintain proper social order and help the citizens gradually progress towards the goal of life, namely spiritual understanding, the principles of Varnashram Dharma must be accepted. From this verse, Maharaj Priyavrata appears to have been so strict in maintaining this instruction of Varnashram Dharma that anyone neglecting it would immediately flee from his presence as soon as the king warned him by fighting or administrating light punishment. Indeed, Maharaj Priyavrata would not have to fight, for simply because of his strong determination, they dared not disobey the rules and regulations of Varnashram Dharma. It is said that unless a human society is regulated by Varnashram Dharma, it is no better than a bestial society of cats and dogs. Maharaj Priyavrata therefore strictly maintains Varnashram Dharma by his extraordinary, unparalleled prowess. To maintain such a life of strict vigilance, one needs encouragement from his wife. In the Varnashram Dharma system, certain classes, such as the Brahmins and Sannyasis, do not need encouragement from the opposite sex. Kshatriyas and Grihasthas, however, actually need the encouragement of their wives in order to execute their duties. That's why it's often called their Shakti, right? They're the energy of the husband. Indeed, a Grihastha or Kshatriya cannot properly execute his responsibilities without the association of his wife. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally admitted that a Grihastha must live with a wife. Kshatriyas were even allowed to have many wives to encourage them in discharging the duties of government. The association of a good wife is necessary in a life of karma and political affairs. To execute his duties properly, therefore, Maharaj Priyavrata took advantage of his good wife Brahishmati, who was always very expert in pleasing her great husband by properly dressing herself, smiling, and exhibiting her feminine bodily features. Queen Brahishmati always kept Maharaj Priyavrata very encouraged, and thus he executed his governmental duty very properly. In this verse, Eva has twice been used to indicate that Maharaj Priyavrata acted exactly like a henpecked husband, and therefore seemed to have lost his sense of human responsibility. Actually, however, he was fully conscious of his position as a spirit soul, although he seemingly behaved like an acquiescent karmi husband. Maharaj Priyavrata thus ruled the universe for 11 arbudas of years. One arbuda consists of 100 million years, and Maharaj Priyavrata ruled the universe for 11 such arbudas. Oh my God, is it ever going to end, these long strings of Sanskrit? Yavad avabhasayate suragirim anuparkaramam Bhagavan Aditya Vasudatalam Ardhenaiva Pratapatardhena Vachayadayati Tada hi Bhagavad Upasano Pachitati Purusha Prabhavastad Anabhinandan Samajavena Rathena Jyoti Mayena Rajanim Apidinam Karishyamiti Saptakrit Vastaranim Anuparyakramad Ditya Eva Patanga. While so we have 6 minutes left. While so excellently ruling the universe, King Priyavrata once became dissatisfied with the circumambulation of the most powerful sun god. Encircling Sumeru hill on his chariot, the sun god illuminates all the surrounding planetary systems. However, when the sun is on the northern side of the hill, the south receives less light, and when the sun is on the south, the north receives less. King Priyavrata disliked this situation, and therefore decided to make daylight in the part of the universe where there was night. He followed the orbit of the sun god on a brilliant chariot, and thus fulfilled his desire. He could perform such wonderful activities because of the power he had achieved by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What verse is this? This is 30. Okay. We might end after this purport. Oops. Okay. Purport. There is a Bengali saying which describes that someone is so powerful. that someone is so powerful that he can make... Huh? Who is that? Somebody. Anyways, there's a Bengali saying which describes that someone is so powerful that he can make the night day and the day night. That saying is current because of the prowess of Priyavrata. His activities demonstrate how powerful he became by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna is known as Yogeshwar, the master of all mystic powers. In Bhagavad Gita 1878, it is said that wherever there is the master of all mystic powers, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, victory, fortune, and all opulences are present. Devotional service is so powerful. When a devotee achieves what he wants to accomplish, it is not by his own mystic power, but by the grace of the master of mystic power, Lord Krishna. By his grace, a devotee can accomplish wonderful things unimaginable even to the most powerful scientists. From the description in this verse, it appears that the sun moves. According to modern astronomers, the sun is fixed in one place, surrounded by the solar system. But here we find that the sun is not stationary. It is rotating in a prescribed orbit. This fact is corroborated by Brahma Samhita 552, Yasyagya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakra. The sun is rotating in its fixed orbit in accordance with the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Jyotirveda, the science of astronomy in the Vedic literature, the sun moves for 6 months on the northern side of the Sumeru hill and for 6 months on the southern side. We have practical experience on this planet that when there is summer in the north, there is winter. We have practical experience on this planet that when there is summer in the north, there is winter in the south, and vice versa. Modern materialistic scientists sometimes present themselves as knowing all the ingredients of the sun, yet they are unable to offer a second sun like Maharaj Priyavrata's. Although Maharaj Priyavrata devised a very powerful chariot as brilliant as the sun, he had no desire to compete with the sun god, for a Vaishnava never wants to supersede another Vaishnava. His purpose was to give abundant benefits in material existence. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that in the months of April and May, the rays of Maharaj Priyavrata's brilliant sun were as pleasing as the rays of the moon. And in October and in November, both the morning and the evening, the sun provided more warmth than the sunshine. In short, Maharaj Priyavrata was extremely powerful, and his actions extended his powers in all directions. Okay, let's just read this because we have 2 minutes. Yeva uha tad rata charana nemi krita parikataste sapta sindhava asan yata eva krita sapta bhuvo dvipa. When Priyavrata drove his chariot behind the sun, the rims of his chariot wheels created impressions that later became 7 oceans, dividing the planetary system known as Bhumandal into 7 islands. Purport. Sometimes the planets in outer space are called islands. We have experience of various types of islands in the ocean, and similarly the various planets, divided into 14 lokas, are islands in the ocean of space. As Priyavrata drove his chariot behind the sun, he created 7 different types of oceans and planetary systems, which altogether are known as Bhumandal, or Bhuloka. And the Gayatri mantra we chant, Rup mantra, you can close your ears if you want. Om Bhur Bhuva Svaha Tat Savitur Varenyam. Above, although I don't think it's a problem. Anyways, above the Bhuloka planetary system is Bhuvarloka, and above that is Svargaloka, the heavenly planetary system. All these planetary systems are controlled by Savita, the sun god. By chanting the Gayatri mantra just after rising early in the morning, one worships the sun god. Alright, it just turned 8 o'clock, so we'll stop here and we'll read 32, 33, and 34 tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Wait, actually, 1 second. Let's just read the translations so that we finish this section. The names of the islands are Jambu Plaksha, Shaimali, Kusha, Kroncha, Shaka, and Pushkar. Each island is twice as large as the one preceding it, and each is surrounded by a liquid substance, beyond which is the next island. Oh God. Anyhow, no, we'll read about this tomorrow. King Priyavrata then gave his daughter Urjvaswati in marriage to Shukracharya, who begot in her a daughter named Devyani. Anyhow, no, let's just read this tomorrow. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Okay, it's pronounced nuptial. Thanks. Nuptial or nuptial. Cool, thanks. Now I know. I've come across that word a few times and I always said it wrong. Okay. Jai Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari. Okay, oh my god, there's so many comments. Okay, Jai Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Juki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Juki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupar Ashatara Shatashmar. Oh God. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Shishimad Shala Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmad Shala Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shala Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmad Shala Bhakti Vigyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatara Shatashmad Shala Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitila Pravishtam Mahabhagavat Shala Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitila Pravishta Shala Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shala Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Dashagunath Shara Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namachay Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Rajamandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund Ki Jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavataya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Man, sorry, there's too many comments for me to respond to them, but anyhow. Alright. Thank you for joining this reading and see you tomorrow. Haribol.